Vorik Tan's 4 eyes locked on the terminal. His mandibles, those restless, clicking things that had annotated 10,000 weapons across 9 station rotations, hung open, silent. Behind him, emergency red light bled across the cargo bay walls, and somewhere past the sealed bulkheads, a bolt-action rifle was still cooling. The cursor blinked. He didn't move. If that silence just made something tighten in your chest, you already know this story matters. Subscribe to the channel, because this one's only getting started. Routine intake, he'd told the junior clerk. That was 11 hours ago, when the cargo manifests still smelled like fresh thermal ink, and the only thing unusual about Bay 14 was the human who signed his forms with a pencil. Vorik had noticed the pencil first, not the man holding it. That came after. Station Kevra 12 processed roughly 400 cargo handlers per cycle, and most of them were forgettable in precisely the way efficiency demanded. They pressed thumbprints to data glass, waited for the chime, moved on. But this one, Cale Brody, age 42, Colonial Registration 7741, cargo handler, dragged a thin stick of graphite across paper and produced markings that the scanner needed 3 attempts to interpret. Vorik clicked once, twice. Your biometric pad is functional. Brody glanced up. Broad shoulders, calloused hands that looked like they'd been shaped by gravity heavier than this station offered, a faded tattoo on his right forearm, some animal Vorik's database tagged as Terran, extinct adjacent, low priority. Pencil works fine, Brody said, and that was it. No explanation, no apology for the inconvenience. He signed the last page and slid it across the counter like a man who had never once considered that there might be a faster way. Vorik filed it under cultural eccentricity and moved on to the cargo itself. The personal items were standard: clothing, a water filtration kit, nutritional supplements optimized for human gut flora, and one long leather case. Dark brown, brass latches, no power reading, no signal emission. Vorik ran his scanner across it twice, and both times the device returned the same flat nothing. Contents, he asked. Brody's jaw shifted, not quite a smile. Family heirloom. Vorik opened the case. Inside, nestled in foam that had yellowed with age, lay a mechanical assembly of wood and metal. Long barrel, manual bolt mechanism, no circuitry, no targeting array, no power cell receptor. His scanner confirmed 0 digital signature. His database cross-referenced it in 4 seconds. A museum category, subcategory, pre-digital human projectile weapons, non-functional by modern combat standards. He stamped the manifest, antique/non-functional. Brody nodded, said nothing. He took the case and walked toward crew quarters with the unhurried gait of a man who had never been late for anything because he'd never seen the point in rushing. Vorik forgot about him for 9 hours. Then Commander Salithor's voice came through every speaker on the station, clipped, cold, methodical as a surgical cut. Station-wide EMP compliance protocol. Why all human-operated systems would be temporarily neutralized to assess dependency thresholds and ensure cooperative integration during fleet exercises. The lights died first, then the locks, then the comms. Every plasma sidearm on every Drethkai belt flickered, chirped, and went dark. But the soldiers had reserve cells, pre-shielded, clicking into place within seconds. Standard procedure. The EMP was designed to strip humans down to nothing, while the Drethkai kept their teeth. If you're the kind of listener who wants to know what happens when someone bets everything on technology and loses, subscribe, because this story was built for you. Vorik stood in the weapons analysis bay, watching his terminal reboot on backup power when the first report came through. Sector 7, crew quarters. A human had declined to remain in his room. Cale Brody was walking, not running, walking, back toward Bay 14. 2 soldiers moved to intercept. Then Vorik heard it. A sound that didn't belong on any station built in the last 300 years. A crack, sharp, concussive, absolute. Not the whine of plasma, not the hiss of a pulse charge. Something older, something that moved air. His thermal eyes caught it before his primary pair did. A heat bloom, barrel-shaped, in the direction of the cargo hold. Temperature rising. The 2 soldiers found him in Bay 14. Vorik knew this because he heard the comms crackle. Backup channel, low frequency, barely functional. And a voice he didn't recognize said, "The human has a device, unidentified. He's—" Another crack, louder through the speakers, then silence. Vorik pulled the bay's security feed. Backup power rendered it in grainy thermal overlay, but it was enough. Cale Brody stood at the far end of the cargo bay, the leather case open on a crate beside him. In his hands, assembled with the kind of speed that only came from years of muscle memory, was the museum piece, the antique, the non-functional heirloom Vorik had stamped and dismissed 9 hours ago. Brody wasn't aiming at the soldiers. He'd fired into the target wall, a reinforced Class 4 armor panel used for weapons testing. The panel had a hole in it. Vorik's mandibles began clicking so fast they blurred. He ran the thermal data. Barrel temperature, 187 degrees and climbing. Projectile velocity, estimated from the impact crater, 820 meters per second. Kinetic energy transfer, approximately 3,400 joules. He ran it again. Same numbers. He ran it a third time because the numbers couldn't be right. No power cell, no accelerant chamber, no magnetic rail. The weapon had no circuit to speak of. Nothing to hack, nothing to jam, nothing to disable. His database returned a single line. No countermeasure on file. The soldiers hadn't moved. Their plasma reserves were functional, fully charged. Unaimed, but Vorik watched their postures through the thermal feed and saw something he'd catalogued in 1,000 species, but never once in Drethkai military personnel. Hesitation. The human wasn't threatening them. He was standing with the weapon broken open across his forearm, barrel pointed at the floor, feeding another brass cartridge into the chamber with his thumb. Calm, unhurried. The same way he'd signed those manifests, with a pencil, where one of the soldiers opened a channel to Commander Salith Orr. Vorik heard the commander's voice, clipped, dismissive. Ask what the delay was. "Commander," the soldier said, "the weapon is mechanical. The EMP did not affect it." Silence on the line. 3 seconds. 5. "Repeat that." "No digital signature, no power cell. It fires a metal projectile using a chemical propellant. It operates on physics alone, Commander." Vorik heard Brody speak then, not to the soldiers, not to the commander, but to the room itself, the way someone states a fact so obvious it barely needs air. "It's just physics. You can't EMP physics." And now, back in the weapons analysis bay, Vorik stared at the screen that read "Reclassify" and understood why his mandibles had stopped. Not confusion, not data overload, fear. He had cataloged 10,000 weapons across every known species, plasma arrays, neural disruptors, gravity lances, viral-tipped micro-drones, all of them sophisticated, all of them networked, all of them killable with the right frequency at the right time. Every single one had a signature, a signal, a thread you could pull. This had nothing. A spring, a pin, gunpowder, a chemical compound so primitive his database classified it under historical curiosities alongside stone tools and signal fires. And it had just punched through armor plating that was rated to stop pulse rounds. His claws moved across the terminal, slowly, deliberately. Item 7741-. "Brody, Status changed from obsolete antique to active threat, no known digital countermeasure. Recommend immediate restricted clearance. He submitted the report. 40 seconds later, Commander Salith Orr revoked the EMP test. Every light on Station Kevra 12 came back on at once, white, clean, humming with the confidence of restored power. The locks re-engaged, the comms flooded with chatter. The plasma sidearms chirped back to life on every belt. And in Bay 14, Cale Brody did exactly what Vorik somehow knew he would do. He didn't celebrate. He didn't posture. He broke the rifle down. Loss of thermal bloom, piece by piece, the barrel cooling in the restored air circulation. And laid each component back into the yellowed foam with the tenderness of a man putting something ancient to bed. He closed the brass latches, set the pencil on top of the case, exactly where it had been that morning, as though the last 11 hours had been a minor interruption in an otherwise unremarkable day. Then he walked away. Same gait, same unhurried shoulders. Vorik watched him go on the now crisp security feed. His mandibles clicked once, a single sharp note that his junior clerk would have mistaken for routine annotation. Then they stopped, and this time the silence meant something different. Not confusion, not fear, recognition. That somewhere in a leather case, latched shut and stamped with his own careless ink, sat the only weapon on Station Kevra 12 that had never needed permission to work. They killed every digital weapon on the station. They forgot humans existed before digital. So what would you have stamped on that manifest? Antique or threat? If this story rewired something in your brain, subscribe. Tomorrow's story might finish the job.